welcome Mr. Keith Townsend, the gentleman formerly known as the CTO Advisor. He has some new things going on in his world, I think, and including the CTO Advisor. And maybe from a high level, Keith, tell us a little bit about who you are and your businesses, and then we can kind of get into some other things.
All right. So as long as there's a Keith Townsend in enterprise IT, there's going to be the CTO advisor. So
Nice.
I
Okay.
am still the CTO advisor. It is the brand in which I create all of my media, all of my insights will be on under that persona. And so I guess it's worth a recap. The CTO advisor was primarily advisory, well, a research firm for vendors and content management, content marketing for vendors. So, we created a lot of traditional enterprise IT insight research that vendor folks paid me to, in some cases, produce or research. And then there was a pure kind of content portion of that business in which they paid me to do videos. And of course, I do all of the editorial stuff.
Mhm.
I took a break from that 1 year, a 1.5 year break where I had sold the IP to the Futrum Group. Futrum, very good to me, very good company. And I just realized, you know what, I miss doing my own thing to continue to work for someone else. Just I was forever spoiled by the CTO advisor. I wanted to get back to working alongside Melissa, my wife. So we started this new business, the Advisor Bench tab, for those of us at a certain age that can remember both the drink and the button on the keyboard. It is a good uh, acronym because I can always alt tab, I can tab to the next topic, I can control tab and go a little bit deeper within a topic. Is a really, really cool acronym. But the concept of that is fairly straightforward. Over the years, I've just developed a lot of friends within the industry. Paul, Keith, both of you are within that category. And those folks just have a huge amount of knowledge around the enterprise buying cycle, challenges, understanding operations, etc. So what I discovered during my time at Futurum is that this has value to folks trying to sell stuff to that those members of my community, and for the members of my community, those trying to buy things. So I've connected those two communities to offer what's essentially a focus group. I get together a bunch of enterprise buyers. We end up going into a vendor's offices, and I facilitate a conversation between the two so that vendors can get insights from these CXOs and practitioners, and those CXOs and practitioners can share insights amongst them, amongst that community of practice. So that's the new business. And the old business, we still do the CTO advisor things because it's a bit of a flywheel. Insights that I get from the advisory stuff goes directly into my content. And then one last piece of tab that I haven't mentioned is Keep on Call, which is just async email type support that I offer executives and practitioners who need my deeper insights as they go through challenges within their day to day. That's the business in a nutshell. Then, when you're ready, we can talk about the important thing, which is the RV.
Yeah, I was say the RV piece. We cannot miss the RV piece. Actually, a couple of things that you said in there struck a bit of a chord with me. And as any good IT guy, I have any number of side hustles and things going on myself. And as you mentioned, providing to providers, that's really an interesting space and someplace I've always seen a gap in helping like. MSPs understand things about those who they provide services to. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Is doing those
Yeah,
types
so
of
if you think about it, let's say that you're MSP, and let's say one of the big virtualization providers
Mhm.
changed their pricing scheme, and you really wanted to understand, you're thinking, well, I can either offer a centralized VMware service or a centralized service around Proxmox, so one of the alternatives to help with the transition between VMware licensing to some other solution in which I host the server and infrastructure. And you really want to understand what are the driving factors in the enterprises actually pulling the trigger. Like
Mhm.
a lot of, I'm sure as a service provider, you folks have run into a lot of executives giving lip service to the idea that they want to leave VMware, but the number of people actually pulling the trigger to leave
Mhm.
VMware is much, much smaller.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, the interesting stat that I had, it's a few months old, but I think it's still relative, is that one of the major backup providers basically audits the number of VMware workloads being backed up for all of the talk of migration off VMware. They've only seen a 6 or 7% decrease annually on the number of VMware workloads being backed up. So this offering would facilitate giving insights. You basically come to the table and say, hey, here's what we envision. Does this make sense? And these buyers can either say yay, nay, or
Right.
let's talk deeper.
Well, I think it's an important tool from a managed services provider perspective to understand more about the whys and the wherefores around the kind of decisions that are involved in the scenario you just laid out. Do you ever see the movie Idiocracy? The-
I don't think so.
Well, there's a part of the movie where they're trying to figure out why their plants don't grow, and they're not growing because they're putting Gatorade on it instead of water, and the line is, but it's got electrolytes, and that's what the body craves. So that becomes the answer to every question. And I think that many times MSPs or those technology partners who are selling to businesses, they kind of say that they kind of don't listen to what that business needs or understand why technology X might be important. And having a guy like you to give them a deeper understanding and to say something that's more relevant than, it's this is a best in class solution. I mean, it doesn't mean anything, for them. And a lot of times those answers that just don't mean anything manifest in missed opportunities. So I think your ability to go in and give them substance is a big deal. It's
Yeah, if you're thinking about it from a Gartner Magic Quadrant perspective,
Mhm.
they create a set of criteria that, in theory, they get from a large number of customers, and then they compare each vendor solution to that large number of customer requirements. But that may not color what a individual organization needs, because
Mhm.
there's not just outliers. You may be a shop that is anti-Microsoft,
Mhm.
and you don't have Active Directory. You're using Spiffy, Spy, or some other authentication service, and it doesn't matter that the top right solutions in the quadrant support LDAP. You don't use Active Directory. You need something that supports specifically these open source solutions. And that's the nuance, right?
Mhm.
Or you might be an organization that's highly regulated, or you might be an organization that has a high turnover of the number of sites. I had a company that I worked for. We bought and sold real estate and managed that real estate on behalf of our investors, and we acquire and divest offices consistently. So speed to delivery of connecting VPN is a concern. So all of this is just nuance
Mhm.
as managed service providers, technology providers are trying to sell within an audience. One of the big ones has been, mid-sized SaaS providers. They grow to about $1 billion typically, and they get stuck at $1 billion. And what typically happens if the mid-sized SaaS providers would have this credit card offering, and they've grown the credit card offering to license model to about $1 billion, and then they need to cross over into enterprise IT and get ELAs, and they're just not having success. It's because they don't understand that buyer at all. And this solution puts that buyer in the same room as that middle-sized software company. They get to really understand those insights.
Yeah, focus on the things that are driving it, and maybe even, do you help? So if they're working on building business cases, do you help them understand what a business case would look like in an enterprise? Because they're different animals, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the SMB is different, very different from
Hmm.
enterprise. A departmental or OU based business looks way, so if you think about it, the OU based business looks way more like a small business from a size perspective,
Hmm.
but they still operate as if they're the large enterprise. And then enterprise IT is even different from that. So, kind of that second level of support, which is the advisory part of the business, is to help them come up with a go-to-market strategy that targets that specific market segment that they're going after, whether it's based off of the insights from the focus group, what we call the buyer's room, or whether it's just my industry experience as an analyst or as a enterprise buyer. That is the primary kind of value, is just helping connect that seller of IT services to the buyer of IT services.
Right. Right. Hmm, cool. Are you seeing traction in any particular verticals? Manufacturing, medical, or is it pretty much kind of across the board? Or
Yeah, so it's across the board. It's interesting that you asked the question because that's one of the qualifying questions I ask
Mhm.
post or pre-engagement, which is, are you looking at a particular segment? And these folks typically aren't. It really does depend on the solution, but if you're a SaaS provider, you're all over the place. If you're, let's say one of my customers was a collaboration software
Mhm.
provider, and they literally everyone from John Hopkins to manufacturing to financial services, they service all of them. Uh, Another one is a cloud provider, on-premises cloud provider, and again, the
Mhm.
range is different. So when we're putting together the panels, it's literally a crossbreed of folks from all over the spectrum when it comes to the various uh, industries and verticals.
Oh, interesting. So you're bringing a diverse ecosystem of talent to each engagement, and you try to as closely as possible, you know, mirror what's needed for that provider,
Yeah, and it's
depending
not
on the
always,
vertical.
and in some cases, it's not even always IT people only.
Hmm.
It can be line of business owners who consume IT services. So if you're
Hmm.
thinking about the collaboration example, or one of the data analysis firms, that you have the end user who's ultimately asking for the data services from their enterprise IT, and they might have gone to the provider directly. And there's the provider is trying to understand the roadblocks from when they're selling to that business owner to what does that business owner, from a business process owner, needs to do to champion the solution internally for IT to eventually adopt the solution,
Hmm.
or embrace or bless the solution. So there's kind of this turning of the chair of saying, the business saying, you know what, I really like the functionality. I can take exports from my SAP transactions and then get these insights. IT, why can't you make this happen? And IT then says, well, it's SAP is our system of record. And the process to connect something that reads and writes to SAP is a huge burden. And every time we do that, we have to revalidate the system. In order to do that, we need, this level of investment and effort, are you willing to put that level of investment and effort in? And then between those three entities, the IT provider, the software provider, the champion who is the non-IT person, and then the IT person can now have a conversation, this three-way conversation, and see if there's a there and it's worth pursuing. The SaaS provider can now determine if it's worth pursuing a go-to-market strategy that targets that workflow.
And what you're doing mentally, I'm wondering. So you're like a unique guy. Like you have a very cool, unique skill set. All right. How did you get from your role being in technology and being a technology worker to being a thought leader and I would argue a marketer,
Yeah,
right? I mean, how?
I don't think that's a unfair assessment at all.
Yeah,
So the journey started, obviously, I don't need to
yeah,
repeat the typical IT career path. I was an
mhm,
IT guy,
yeah,
I installed server gear, I uh, configured switches,
right,
I did the thing,
yeah, right,
the then obviously the career progressed into management. Then I lost my job.
mm, okay,
And this was during the great uh, recession,
hmm,
and I was out of work for like 10 months. It was a very, very painful time, if those of us of the age can
hmm,
remember. And I got offered a job at Lockheed Martin on the other side
oh,
of the country, back in out east.
hmm,
And it was a job that if I had not been unemployed, I probably would not have ever taken. And it was a job that changed my entire career and outlook on enterprise IT. It led to me becoming an enterprise architect. And it was not just an enterprise architect, but it was an enterprise architect within Lockheed Martin. And it established me understanding not just the technology side, but the business of IT from a service provider perspective, and from the fact that I served as an enterprise architect for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So I had that secondary business lens.
I would argue that it forced you to have big thoughts. I mean,
It forced me,
you can't have small thoughts. You have to have big thoughts when you're in a space like that.
you have to have big thoughts and they get challenged. And they're not, I was no longer far from the smartest guy in the room. And from an IT perspective, from a pure IT perspective, I was, I was a pretty sharp IT guy. I was the smartest IT guy I knew. When I was at Lockheed Martin, I was no longer the smartest guy, not
Hmm,
by far.
hmm,
There was folks way more experienced, had way more depth and breadth of knowledge than I did, and it helped me kind of form this other view. This is where my previous persona, virtualized geek, was formed, and that's where I started blogging and sharing insights around virtualization, specifically VMware and Hyper-V to a lesser extent. And then I my wife wanted to move back to Chicago. And because I had gotten exposure at Lockheed Martin at this business level, I now qualified to work as a management consultant at PwC.
hmm,
And while I was a technology management consultant, I was primarily a management consultant. So
hmm,
while one of my favorite kind of things in approaches has always been, while in one room, a team of folks of technologists are arguing, iSCSI versus fiber channel. Uh, I was in the other room arguing how many of these folks do we need to retain versus lay off.
hmm,
So again, yet a wider view of the industry. I then got burnt out. Lockheed Martin, I traveled 42 weeks out of the 52 weeks of the year,
Mhm.
Monday through Thursday, getting home either Thursday night
Yep.
or leaving out Sunday night, getting home Thursday. That's
I'm a former Deloitte guy, so I can relate to the road warrior piece.
you're there with me.
Yeah, man.
So I went looking for another job. And I famously quit my job without having a job. I posted to LinkedIn and Twitter at the time that, hey, virtualized geek is available for employment. I got a huge level of response. Cisco, Microsoft, HPE, all these companies that I dreamed of working for.
Mhm.
And I didn't qualify for any of the jobs.
Hmm.
They were all technical. And
Mhm.
I was no longer technical. Like I was no longer keyboard. I was no longer keyboard technical. Spending the
Right.
4 years between PwC and Lockheed Martin ruined my ability to go that deep
Mhm.
for what the providers were looking for. And I had also had been blogging still at the time, and I had started to sell um, uh, sponsored content. I had ghostwrite, I do blogging.
Mhm.
I had started to kind of get into the marketing side of the business. So this is where I pivoted, and that's the birth of the CTO Advisor. I literally abandoned Virtualized Geek as my brand and adopted the CTO Advisor circa 2014 and
Mhm.
became the CTO Advisor and focused uh, on kind of this translation layer between management and technical folks and being able to sit in either room. There's very few,
Okay.
especially at that time, very few technical conversations I could get lost in, and very few management conversations I could get
Right.
lost in, and I could translate between the layers.
The way I describe it in my personal experience is that I'm not in the details of how ones and zeros through move through wires. I care that they move through wires. So that's kind of the way I think about it for my own personal experiences in that regard.
Yep, and that's pretty accurate to where I had reached at that point in my career. So in 2016, I started the CTO. I incorporated the CTO Advisor formally. In late 2016, I left. I was basically getting 40% on the side. I was getting 40% of my income that I needed to survive from the CTO Advisor at that time. Well, yeah, that's a pretty good time to strike out and see if we can stretch and make it happen. And my formula, and the reason why I named the company the CTO Advisor, was because I was a Lockheed Martin guy. I mean, I was a PwC guy,
Hmm.
and I liked advisory work, but I knew that advisory work is too cyclical, and that I needed something to fill the gap. So sponsored content would be that gap. Started the business, and then I shortly realized sponsored content is way more lucrative
Hmm.
than advisory.
Hmm.
Not even a comparison. Like I could get a $25,000 sponsored uh, content deal in like 3 emails versus
Right.
you folks do managed service.
Hmm.
It takes a while to sign a $25,000 consulting agreement. Like
Yep.
that's a whole thing. So we pivoted to primarily marketing, and that's where I leaned into it. Started listening to like my podcast went from listening to marketing tech podcast. I'm sorry, technical podcast to technical marketing
Hmm.
marketing podcast in general, and really picking up on the lingo and the drivers. I hired a part-time CMO who helped guide my offerings to make sure they appeal to enterprise CMOs and enterprise IT buyers, or rather CMO marketing buyers, and that's how we made the pivot.
Wow. So you've kind of always had this little creative spark burning inside you, and, and then it just all of a sudden came out. seems
Yeah, it
like.
was forced out via, kind of in some cases out of necessity, kind of the whole, well, if I'm no longer a engineer,
Mhm.
but I don't want to and I didn't want to go back and do the work to become an engineer again. Uh but I didn't really want to go into management purely. What do I do? And that was like that was the catalyst.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, it's quite a story, quite a journey. Um, so where do you see it in 3 years? What do you see happening with it in
Well,
your
that's a really
wildest
good
vision?
that's a good question because I've been doing this, a combination of the CTO advisor since late 2016. We're in
Right.
2025 now. It's almost 9 years.
Right. Well,
Uh,
it's almost part of you.
it's
I mean,
almost
it's
part of
you know,
me.
yeah.
And
Do you have a CTO advisor leotard and a cape that you wear around, or boots, or anything like that we should know
no,
about?
but I need to put it's interesting. I have my CTO advisor banner I'm looking at now,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is what I use where I usually have in the background. Matter of fact, I'm going to put it
It's
back in the
it's
background.
it's the light blue and white one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
light blue and white one.
Yep.
I never threw it away from when I did when I went to
Yeah.
Future. I need to
The
get it
iconic
back into the
the
background,
the iconic background.
the iconic background. But I took it away because I worked for Future, and
Hmm.
the brand didn't, that wasn't the Futurum brand. And what I discovered during my time at Futurum, who was very, very nice to me, and I have no complaints about it, was that I don't want to build a $1 billion business.
Hmm.
Like, that's not my goal. I like jumping in the Airstream on, a little bit of notice and
Yeah.
driving out to Crater Lake.
Yeah.
Or,
Let's talk about that a little bit. So you
yeah.
still got the Airstream going? You're still doing the whole RV thing?
So the Airstream has a home now.
Okay.
We bought a tract of land in Tennessee, 7 acres,
Oh, nice.
and I am dealing and I'm trying to solve my moisture issues of leaving the Airstream down, buttoned up for months at a time, down on just raw 7 acres of forested land with
Hmm.
no connectivity, uh, no electricity. Cross my fingers, I'll get it in 3 weeks.
I got something for you. I'll send you a link.
There
I
you
got
go.
something for you. I
So
have
we
one that I have parked on a piece of land too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, so we were just saying we were just saying right before I got on the line with you, I was walking with my wife Melissa and I was saying, "Hey, we should go grab the Airstream and then go out west." And she said, "We can't because my son and daughter-in-law are having a gender reveal on the 19th
Huh.
down in Florida, but I'm itching to get it back out on the road."
Yeah. Yeah, so we go west. A year ago, I worked for 2 weeks in Glacier National Park.
Oh, nice.
I have my Starlink, and I was connected the whole time, and uh, worked 2 weeks from the shores of Lake Superior, and a campground on Lake Superior. So that was nice. No trees obstructing the Starlink there, but that's big. So coming up in September, I think it is, we're going to the Buffalo Roundup in the Black Hills. So us and 20,000 of our friends watch them. We sit there for 4 hours to watch 10 minutes of buffalo come in off the prairie. But
You, and you're an RVer, so I don't have to
yeah,
explain RV lifestyle and rationale to you. I had no when we went on the journey, and for folks who are coming into the middle of the story, why is this even relevant? Like,
yeah,
why is the RV thing even relevant? Famously, well, infamously, about 3 years ago, I pulled the Airstream onto the show floor of VMware Explorer.
yeah.
And we sat up there and we did our video interviews. I interviewed Kelsey Hightower and a
Which is
bunch
a
of
great.
other.
It's a great interview.
It was a
Actually,
great interview.
his story is awesome.
that it is an awesome story, and we did it. Basically, people are like, oh, that's a gimmick. Absolutely, is a gimmick. That all of marketing is a gimmick.
Yeah, right.
So yes, it's a gimmick, but it is a awesome gimmick. But we ended up falling into this RV culture where we're like, oh, we see why people never leave the U.S. You don't need to. It's
Yeah,
amazing where kind of where you can go in the
right.
RV.
And what I appreciate about, what I do and probably similar to what you do is that, like I said, I have my Starlink. I can work from anywhere. Doesn't matter anymore. No boundaries,
Yeah,
you know?
same here. My only challenge is that those doggone pine trees in
Yeah.
Tennessee, man, they're
Yeah, that
I
overhangs.
haven't found a good spot. I can Netflix and do all the streaming that I want, and it's more or less fine. But for video conferencing, having
Hmm.
micro drops every 2 or 3 minutes is very frustrating.
Yeah, very frustrating. Yeah, that was the nice part about Glacier National Park is no trees in the way, just mountains. The best
Yeah,
looking office, you know.
whenever we RV in Colorado, and people are like, well, Colorado has a lot of trees, not at
Mm.
10,000 feet.
No,
So the and it's just it is the life, man. It is
it
an
is.
amazing ability to still do what we can, do what we need to
Yep,
do, because we don't need to be hands on
yep,
physical wiring and data centers and all of that stuff anymore. And the ability to work from anywhere is not something that I'd be willingly giving up.
yeah. It'd be hard to give up. I agree with that. And it's interesting. One of my friends who also does some consulting work. He and I were talking about it, and uh, you know, there's it's interesting to be able to help solve problems but not own the problems, right? Because the owning the problems is a whole
Woo.
different. You're the guy who's up 24 hours doing conversions and working on issues where it is there. It is nice to be able to solve the problems, but not have to be the owner of those. As you are you going to stay in this game? You and I are kind of. I'm venturing to guess despite your very youthful appearance, that we're probably similar vintage. We both remember Tab Cola, so so we're probably similar vintage. Um, do you see this as being kind of your thing from here on out, or are you going to get, are you going to drop out of society, have a midlife crisis, and start a lawn mowing business?
So
Because
we
this is
are
also
definitely
something that
going
my
to
buddy and I
build.
talk about.
We're definitely going to build an Airbnb on the property in Tennessee, but that's never going to be my full-time jam. Like,
Hmm.
I love doing this.
Hmm.
I don't ever foresee myself not doing it. I'm talking to Anurag, who's a fellow analyst. I really don't call myself an analyst, but externally is the easiest way to explain what I do.
Hmm.
And he was saying that he works from, he's a little bit older than me, and he works from 9 to 2 every day. And the sweet thing about this job, I can probably at some point I can slow down and get 4 or 5 retainer clients on the analyst side,
Hmm.
and just and kind of do this wherever. I've run into guys in the analyst track and community that's in their 70s that's still very much active in doing this, because they have this wealth of knowledge and this value. And this is one places in technology guys our age can hide and not worry too much about ageism, because ageism is a challenge if
Hmm.
you're primarily technical, and if you haven't moved into management and you want to keep on managing teams and larger teams, etc. I have no plans of ever retiring if I can help it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, the gentleman and I were talking around the same lines is like, I do enjoy doing this type of work. It's very rewarding. I love it. And you can just scale it up or down. That's the thing is if you want to keep on keeping on, you can. You can just scale it down a little bit. One of the most critical things is being that lifelong learner. Staying relevant and keeping your skills, keeping yourself informed. So that's obviously something that you practice. Is that lifelong learning thing. As we kind of come up on the end of our time, um, what do you hope? What would your hope be that people take away from your work, or what would you hope that people walk away from an experience working with you, either with your tab or as the advisor? What would you hope that they would take away from their experience with you as Keith the guy?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is personal success. Like
Mhm.
we're all worried and should be about how AI will impact what we do. And
Mhm.
this used to be a very safe industry and job. You could
Mhm.
get into technology and you'd be fine. My son has a computer science degree from the University of DePaul, my alma mater. And he spent both between him and I, we spent a tremendous amount of money. He spent all of that effort getting the degree, and he works for the VA, and he's worried about his job, as
Mhm.
many of us have been over the past couple of years. And I truly believe what I'm doing now is the future of work for most of us knowledge workers, specifically around enterprise IT.
Mhm.
AI will be able to do other than the physical wiring and racking and stacking and things that have to be, trenching cable and all of that. AI will be able to answer the technical questions
Mhm.
and do the technical work. The question is, where's the value that folks like us add? And it is in our experience and in our ability to orchestrate
Mhm.
uh, AI and take it to that and be that human in the loop. And more than likely, it's not going to be a full-time job from a 9 to 5. And I'm hoping I'm laying the foundation and some of the groundwork on top of the folks that came before me to help people see how to do that and achieve that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think about the things that we do as kind of being the conductor of the orchestra, and it seems to be an important space that you're filling, that helps to solve business challenges by leveraging technology and the right technology for that business, and um, and you helping them get to the most correct answer, because I think you know as well as I do, obviously, that there's about 50 ways to do everything. But there's the concept of the most correct answer for
Yeah,
that business.
and a lot of times that creates, that's the nuance that AI doesn't have, right? That
Right.
is I posted this today of the recording. AI AI says my recommendation is that you move to a new platform. And Keith Townsend says my recommendation is that you move to a new platform.
Yep.
You take both of those recommendations to the CIO procurement, and you give those recommendations exact same thing, but who says it matters
Mhm.
more than what was said? Because if and when things go wrong, because they will go wrong, I can't say as a business process owner, as someone responsible, that AI told me to do it. There has to be something defensible in the decisions that I make. And when it says that whether Keith Sweigel or Keith Townsend told me to do it, that has way more weight to it, and we need to learn how to take advantage of that.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think there's gravity behind having at least reputational skin in the game. You know,
It
you
is
you have your most important asset tied to that recommendation, which is your name. So, yes, sir. Well, Keith, thank you very much for your time today. Yeah, I don't know. We could probably talk 3 hours, but it is,
easly, especially if
yeah,
we're talking
yeah.
RV,
Especially talking RV
airframe.
stuff.
Yeah, that's
I'll,
easy.
I'll send you that link. Because I don't know if I want to say I've experienced moisture issues, but I know what you're talking about anyways. So no, thank you so much for your time. Good luck with your tab venture. It's definitely a space that I think is calling for a resource like yourself to be there. So appreciate hearing from you today.